What's up? You're trying to buy an acoustic guitar, but you know nothing about acoustic guitars. Luckily for you, there's some very standard things you can look at to know if your guitar is worth buying or not, and I'm gonna show you what those are. So you got your like romantic era guitars from the early 1800s. You got parlors from like the early turn of the century. There's like resonator guitars, 12-string guitars, and then you have the best guitar of them all, the pink Hello Kitty. This is the same style of guitar that I'm gonna talk about, which is just a standard dreadnought guitar. This is what a lot of people are gonna gravitate towards, especially here in the mountains of Western North Carolina, because we like a bluegrass. Our grass is blue, baby. When you pick a guitar up, the first thing most people know to look for is what they call the action. The action is the distance from the string to the fretboard. You can tell as soon as you pick a guitar up if it's got really high action. If this is sitting a 1/4 inch up here, you know that this neck has a bow to it. Now, if you have an internal truss rod, which is another great thing to look for, you're gonna see that by, if you look right in here, there's a little screw there. And if you have that screw there, that means that the truss rod, which is a bar that goes all the way up the neck of the guitar, is adjustable. And what that means is you can take a little Allen wrench, and as you loosen the strings, you can turn it to or fro, and that's gonna either make the neck bow back or forward a little bit. What that's gonna do is make the action of the strings higher or lower a little bit. If it's got really high action and there's no adjustable truss rod, the next major thing to do that is a whole neck reset. And that's taking this whole heel off here, reattaching it at the proper angle so you've got the right intonation and action. So the second section is gonna be inspecting your nut and saddle and your bridge. There's some very simple ways to do that. So the saddle right here, if this has a lot of meat left in it, and what I mean by that is, see how low this one is? This has been sanded down before. And so you can do that as a cheat rather than having to do a neck reset to lower that action. The way you can tell if it's been lowered a lot before is by looking at what's called the break angle. The break angle is the angle of the strings as they dive into your bridge hole, your bridge pin holes here. So as you can see on this one, unfortunately, it doesn't have a huge break angle. If you look at new guitars that are freshy from the factory, their break angle will be almost at like a 45-degree angle. This one here is pretty flat. So what you know from this is, whereas the action's good now here, you won't be able to adjust the action by sanding that saddle down. So that's what you look for just on the saddle itself. Now the nut, which is your other piece of bone up here on the top, it's essentially the exact same idea as the saddle. If you have meat left on here, you can sand this down so you can lower your action. That's a very simple fix for any luthier, less than $100 to get done, whereas you'll spend $300, $400, $500, $600 to get a whole neck reset. To recap, we got our action, we got our truss rod, we have our saddle and our break angle into the saddle, and then looking for the same things here on the nut at the top. Next is the bridge. The biggest stress on the instrument is the tension of the strings. You're always pulling at the saddle right here, trying to pull it off the guitar where it's glued. It's pulling the neck, trying to pull it up if this neck already has a bow in it. When you look at the base of the saddle, right on that crease where it's glued to the body of the guitar, the trick is to take a little piece of paper and you slide it in under there. With this one, there's no room for it to go. It's completely solid and glued because I've had my luthier go over this guitar and she re-glued this. When I bought it, that edge was coming up some from the tension of the strings. That was when I bought this. It was one of the reasons why I bought it for cheaper, was because, hey, look, I gotta replace this bridge on here. If someone's trying to sell you something that's messed up, it's a very easy negotiation tactic to take a piece of paper and be like, look, man, you see how far that slides down? That means the glue's coming up on that. That's a big issue. Number 4 is gonna be the structure of the body of the guitar. The first thing that you're gonna wanna do is literally shake the instrument. That's gonna tell you if any of the bracing has come loose on the inside. You're gonna hear it flapping around, and then you can look on the inside and you can see if any of the bracing on the inside has come up, has come unglued. And obviously, if it has, it's not a reason not to buy the guitar. It's not a hard fix, but once again, it's an issue with the instrument that will need to be fixed. That's going to be a negotiation tact for you in buying this used guitar. The second is going to be to inspect the body. That's going to be looking at the top of the guitar, the sides of the guitar, and the back of the guitar. You're gonna be looking for cracks. You're gonna be looking for where the binding is coming loose on any of the parts. And luckily, this is a guitar that doesn't have any cracks or anything in it. I'm gonna grab one to show you that you can see, a guitar that has cracks that's been fixed. So this is one of my favorite guitars I found. This is an old Romantic from the 1800s, and it's still a beautiful instrument. This is just a sweetie. You can see on this body, these were all cracks. Now, it didn't stop me from buying it, but I knew I had to fix it. So I got my luthier to do what's called cleating it. It's like little wooden cleats on the side there. And the way to check how bad cracks are is you very gently put both fingers on either side of the crack and push. But on these, there's no movement at all because these have all been cleated and properly fixed. It's not a reason not to buy it, but it is a reason to say, hey, instead of $450, how about $350? Pull a Kenny. Back to the good stuff. So the next thing is gonna be the neck set and the heel of the guitar. So that is this part right here. On this guitar, you can tell that that is the factory finish still on that instrument. Now you're gonna easily be able to tell ones that this neck has come up because there's gonna be a little discoloration here where they had to use a heat gun to heat it up and get it separated. And you're gonna see like lines, just evidence that there's been a neck reset. Now when you're going into really high-end guitars, like your Martins and old Gibsons and stuff, it affects the value greatly if it is the original neck set or if it has had a neck reset before. So if you're looking at buying like a $5,000-$6,000 Martin, you gotta make sure to do your research on what's the value of that guitar pre-neck reset or after it's had one. This is what you wanna see. And then the next thing that I always check, what is this, number 5? Number 6?
I don't know. I think number 5.
Okay, C, your tuning machines. You wanna inspect the pegs themselves, make sure they're not bent. A lot of times those will get knocked around and bent and stuff. You wanna make sure, one, you can very easily tell if it's the original tuning machines because a lot of times there'll be indentations where there'll be old screw holes that they put, like the original ones were in or something. And then you literally wanna put a tuner on it and tune them up and down. And over time with oxidation, with rust, with getting banged around, sometimes they don't work as well after a while. If you're buying a guitar, the last thing you want to do is be fighting your instrument. And so if you got high action, you got old strings, it's not intonated properly, the tuning pegs don't work properly, you're not gonna be inspired to play the guitar. You're gonna be fighting it the whole time. You won't have to deal with this if you just come buy a guitar from Asheville Guitar Pedals, but if you're buying something used, these hopefully are some good tips and some avenues that can help you make educated decisions that you're not gonna end up regretting buying something or having to put more money than what the guitar is worth into it. Nobody wants a broken guitar, so buy a guitar but make sure it's not broke with these tips from your boy, Kenny Clark.